The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, you'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
The South Kesteven series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop located at 20 Ropery Road, Gainsborough, or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Welcome back to South Kesteven, everybody. Now I'm beginning this episode at a solar farm. Now we've seen loads of these in our time, and they are very controversial things. People have opinions on them that basically range from why they're taking up so much valuable farm space to we need other ways of making energy. Well, in this case, this solar farm right here is actually on a piece of land that wasn't actually doing anything. So if anyone complains about this one, they'd be wrong to. You can find it in Marston. Marston Marsh Farm. Today on TVI we continue through South Kesteven as we enter the parish of Marston, slowly working our way back across the district to the west. Marston can be accessed via a long straight road off the A1 near Long Bennington or from Barkston via Station Road. Marston is a nice little village laid out in an almost perfect square. There are several landmarks here which bear relevance to the mighty Thorold family, the same mob that occupied Syston Park Hall, as we learned yesterday. Loads of things around this village carry the Thorold name. Perhaps one of the most interesting would be the gorgeous Victorian school built in 1861. It still gets some support from the Dame Margaret Thorold charity, which was set up way back in the early 1700s. Another is the pub, the Thorold Arms, now a community-owned venture. South of the village there's a lot of farmland, but not all of it is used by the local farmers. In fact, in recent years, one farm in particular has been very willing to give up some of its land in order to aid the UK's energy generation sector. I'm talking about Marston Solar Farm. With 19,000 solar panels sprawling across the Lincolnshire landscape, some might argue it's taking up valuable farmland. However, in Marston, that's not the case, as we'll discover. We have a hotel and a watermill to see here, and a fine church with a tall brooch spire. Let's get walking. Here we have Marston as it was in 1900, and straight away you notice how open the landscape around here is. Marston is certainly not a village that's going to break any records in terms of its size. It's a small one, all clustered around 4 central roads. Its name gives us a bit of a clue as to why. As with other Marstons we've seen on our travels, this was Marsh Farm, and so you can imagine the big open skies and flat landscape this would have once been. It would have been wet, and therefore not all that great for habitation. Drainage, though, turned it into farmland. Not all of the farmland here is high-grade agricultural. True, there's a lot and it does get used, but historically Marston was more about milling. Its location next to the Witham meant it was a great place for it, and there were 3 mills in close proximity, 2 here and 1 in Hotham. If we zoom in, you can see one of the mills here. We'll be walking to that one on this route because it still stands. It's no longer milling anything, but it's a brilliant little house now and still has some of the mill machinery from the 1850s. The mill is a bit of an anomaly given its watery location. The rest of Marston was all built up around 4 roads that form a misshapen rectangle: Main Street, Pinfold Lane, Barkston Road and School Lane. Almost all of the main features on those roads are still standing, except for one. That would be the old Methodist chapel that used to be on this corner. It's disappeared now, but the school, the church and the pub on this corner are all still here. Marston Hall has been here since 1380 in various guises, and it's going nowhere fast. That's probably the most important building here. And time hasn't altered the place a lot. Marston is still the same misshapen rectangle it ever was, and really the only difference now would be the amount of houses around its edge. Gaps have been infilled, and there's some cul-de-sacs, but essentially we have the same village. So the route of this one is going to be very, very easy. After starting to the southwest at a solar farm on Tollbar Road, we'll drive to the village and walk around the four sides. The only times we'll need to deviate are for Mill Lane and for Bridge Street at the end, where we'll go to the church. Let's go! So let's get things going here with something that certainly wasn't on those maps because it hadn't even been invented. Solar power is something we've come to find normal these days, and in Marston there's a big solar farm close to the A1 off Tollbar Road. Known as Marston Solar Farm, this was connected to the local distribution network on the 18th of July 2011, and ever since it's been providing power to some of the local villages. The land is owned by Westfield Farm, but the panels are owned by Light Source Renewable Energy. It covers 12 hectares and consists of more than 19,000 solar panels which generate enough green energy to power 1,200 homes. The stats show they save around 2,210 tonnes of carbon per year as a result. Roughly, that equates to taking 688 large cars off the road annually. At the time of connection, Marston Solar Farm was one of the largest utility-scale solar farms to be constructed in the UK, but that said, Westfield Farm rents less than 1.5% of its total farmland to Lightsource, who by the way are the UK's largest solar energy generator. And its location is actually really good. Before becoming the solar farm, the land it sits on wasn't all that useful. It was Grade 3 agricultural land, which was not particularly suited to the farm's main business of growing potatoes and horticultural crops. Although the height of the panels allows for grazing, the landowners opted to leave the site as a haven for wild birds, small mammals and wildflowers. The panels are very well screened from view by the planting of additional hedgerows, which itself creates a further biodiversity gain. Westfield Farm itself has a long history of looking after the environment by taking part in schemes such as the former Countryside Stewardship Scheme. The farm is run with a strong emphasis on wildlife and keeps a constant watch on its carbon footprint. About halfway between the solar farm and the main village of Marston, there's a property that stands all on its own along Tollbar Road. This is an old barn which has been repurposed as a hotel. It used to be a Ramada, but today it's simply known as the Barn Hotel and Spa. This styles itself as one of the leading hotels in Lincolnshire. That's certainly a bold claim, but to be honest it might not be terribly wide of the mark. It's certainly one of the best in the Grantham area, and it won't break the bank either if you choose to spend a night here. Inside, old rustic charm intertwines with remarkable hospitality. It features a collection of tastefully decorated rooms, an atmospheric restaurant, a contemporary bar, an inviting lounge, and a health spa which is at your disposal, complete with a gym and a swimming pool. There's even a sauna room too. It's the perfect place to stay if you're wanting a little bit of Lincolnshire luxury, and not a bad place to start from if you're wanting to explore Grantham or maybe Newark, which is only a few miles from here. You could even wander up to the village, like we're about to do now. Okay, here we are then in Marston Village, and I'm beginning on a dead-end cul-de-sac here called Ker's Crescent, which is absolutely beautiful actually in this autumn sunshine right now. I'll just give you a little tour of the street. We've got a tree here, which is, well, it had apples on it, but as you can see, most of the apples are on the floor now. So that's that. It's bungalows otherwise, as you can see. And then the exit to it is over there next to a bus stop. And when we reach that bus stop in a few seconds time, we'll take a right turn and we'll head around the village. We begin our walk on a small cul-de-sac called Ker's Crescent, and within a few short meters we're on Main Street. Our first job is to head south to where Main Street and Tollbar Road meet Pinfold Lane. On the corner of the three, there used to be a chapel. This is known to the locals as Chapel Corner, even though the building it's named after has long since disappeared. It's been replaced with a bungalow now. It was a Wesleyan chapel that was in operation between the years of 1829 and 1965. It never had a churchyard. Little else is really known about the chapel, but its presence lives on thanks to the bungalow which is named Chapel Corner. There's also another house on Tolbar Road that's called Chapel House. Let's move on past the chapel site and down Pinfold Lane next towards the Barkston Road. Marston sits on the western bank of the River Witham, and its proximity to water made it a prime location for milling. A map published in 1792 depicts two watermills to the south of Marston village. The northerly one was called Marston Mill, and its successor survives to this day as a house. There was a second one called Marston Upper Mill, and it was further upstream. That one is a ways away from the village, but it can be accessed using Hoffham Mill Lane to the south of the village. Don't be confused by that name. Marston Upper Mill would later be renamed Hoffham Mill, oddly. We can walk to Marston Mill. That one is within easy walking distance of the Barkston Road. Both it and its predecessors were manorial mills owned by the Thorold family since at least the 17th century. The present mill was rebuilt in the 1850s and continued to operate until the mid-1950s. Okay, so we've come down Mill Lane here, which is a very narrow road, and there's supposed to be a footpath off to the right here, but there just appears not to be anymore, because as you can see to my right hand side you've got a wall, some trees and stuff like that. Definitely no footpath, and I don't think it goes through that house. So yeah, the mill is what I'm after, of course, and the footpath would have helped, because had it have been there I could have gone down it and taken a few long shots of the mill. As it is, this is going to be a little bit dodgy. The mill is at the end of this road, and I'm going to get right close to it to show you it. I didn't want to do this, but it is what it is. And here is the mill at the end of Mill Lane on the River Witham. After standing derelict for many years after it fell out of use, it was residentially converted in the late 1990s. There is some internal machinery remaining here though, and it appears to date from the 1850s. Robert Treadgold, born at Great Gonaby in 1798, was listed as the tenant miller here in 1842. In the 1851 census, he was recorded as a miller and a farmer of 485 acres, and employed his son Robert and a journeyman miller called William Hardy. Robert Sr. died in May 1857, but the business continued to thrive through the prosperous high farming period. George Denton followed as the tenant miller between 1905 and 1922. He was the last miller recorded in trade directories. Even so, Marston Mill continued to be operated for provender work until the mid-1950s, and was latterly operated by an electric motor as opposed to purely river water. It was used as a store for several years before becoming derelict, but now you'd never know it was once in such a state. Yeah, I did the best I could with the mill there, quite frankly, people. Without being able to access that footpath, there's no way I could have taken the long shots. I got a couple in, and actually I spoke to the guy who lives in the mill while I was down there. He spotted me, and he said that the footpath has been blocked off now. It's been permanently blocked off by the guys who live in the house that I showed you before I started talking about the mill. So yeah, that's that anyway. Now next on our list, we've wandered to this corner. Now behind those trees is the church. We'll catch that in a little while. Next door to the church, however, is this big building. That's Marston Hall. Back to Barkston Road, and next we have Marston Hall to discuss. Located next to the church on a bend in the road, Marston Hall is a Grade 2 listed late 16th century country house. It's had a few further alterations up to and including the 18th century. Pevsner recorded a 1962 Gothic-style garden gazebo here designed by John Partridge. It had pinnacles by Christopher Blackie and murals by Barbara Jones. This was lived in by the Thorold family, the same bunch as we spoke about yesterday in Syston. They had a few properties, didn't they? The Thorolds were Vikings, originally from Malmo in southern Sweden. Some came over to England and settled in eastern areas, whilst other members moved further south and settled with many of their fellow Norsemen near Pont Audmer in Normandy. The name Thorold appears in the Domesday Book because at that time one member of the family was Sheriff of Lincoln. His sister was Lady Godiva, and of course became famous for riding through the streets of Coventry with, shall we say, a little less clothing than one should wear in a city centre. Another Thorold was a churchman who came over from Normandy in 1066 and is believed to have organised the making of the Bayeux Tapestry. He's depicted in that tapestry with his name. He was subsequently installed as Abbot of Peterborough, accompanied by a retinue of 171 armed knights. But he didn't live here. Marston's connection with the family started in 1380 when Richard Thorold acquired the hall by marriage. In more recent times, it was the home of Ernest Thorold until 1941. He was the Armed Forces chaplain and also chaplain to the king. In 1936, he was contacted by the Archbishop of Canterbury saying Edward VIII would telephone him shortly asking him to marry him and Mrs. Simpson. It's interesting to wonder what might have happened to our modern history had his reply had been an affirmative. In any event, there's been a domestic building on this site since the 10th century, making it one of the oldest in the country. We know a Saxon called Turvet lived here, but was displaced by the de Marston family at the time of the Norman conquest. The only physical evidence from that time is a Saxon cross which can still be seen at the back of the house. In 1380, Richard Thorold, who came from Selby in North Yorkshire, married the de Marston heiress, Joan, and the property has been in the family ever since. Now, of course, this isn't the house Richard knew. The original would have been pretty modest, but by the mid-14th century the exterior would have looked much as it does now. From the front, it has the appearance of two buildings joined together, but that's deceptive. It's all one. By Tudor times, the family was prospering, and in 1577 the current porch was added with two wings, making a traditional E-shape, which was the fashion in Elizabethan times. Unfortunately, less than a century later, there was a setback in the family fortunes. The first serious engagement of the Civil War took place 2 miles away at Syston Park, and in April 1642, Oliver Cromwell rode over here and set fire to the south wing. Evidence for that is still being found in the fields around the house in the form of pistol and musket shot. William Thorold, a keen royalist who lived here at that time, was created a baronet for his part in the Civil War. Sometime later, to make the house more symmetrical, a former north wing was taken down and a house was built of the reused stone a few hundred yards down the Barkston Road. Gradually, fortunes improved, and in the mid-18th century, Sir John Thorold, the 9th Baronet, had built that splendid Palladian mansion at Syston Park. At about the same time, Marston's interior was altered, and the whole house was divided into separate rooms in keeping with the times. The hall passed to the current owners John and Liz Thorold in 2001 after the death of Ernest's son Henry. He was a retired housemaster and well known as a writer of many shell guides and other books on ancient houses. He even did one on this very property. He clearly didn't like his own home. According to him, Marston Hall had a reputation for being the coldest house in England. I can assure you that now, if you step inside this grand old mansion, it's now warm and comfortable, with central heating and large open fires. Now, if you think Marston Hall is an amazing building, check this out. This is the school. Marston Thorold C of E Primary School is next on our list. This is easily one of the best Victorian buildings around this area, and it's been extended twice since the turn of the millennium. It dates from 1861 and is still somewhat supported by the Dame Margaret Thorold Educational Charity. It was Dame Margaret Thorold that founded this very school in memory of her husband Sir John Thorold in 1716. 2 years later, her charity was providing for both Marston and Syston by way of an endowment. The modern building was given a Grade 2 listing in 1984. The connection between Marston and the Thorold family is one that should definitely be recognised. The school and the hall see to it that it is, but it's also duly noted at the pub, which is the next stop on our list. On the corner of School Lane and Bridge Street is the Thorold Arms. This building has been through the mill a bit. It's a pub at the moment, but it's also been a shop, a restaurant, and even a B&B. Whatever it's been in the past, it's always had a really good reputation, and so it was a sad day in Marston when it was forced to close in 2015. However, that closure didn't last for long, because now it's back open after a successful campaign to purchase and reopen the pub as a community venture. The pub is now owned and managed by the Thorold Arms Community Benefit Society, which raised £210,000 to do so. They did it through community shares and were able to buy and renovate the pub in 2019 after a 3-year campaign to reopen it. It was a vital thing to this village. You see, Marston has a population that's predominantly older, with double the national average of people over 50. This pub therefore offers a range of social inclusion activities and a venue space for other local groups. Of course, it's a pub, so they also do all the other usual pub things. It even has a small shop now that sells everyday essentials. There's also an outreach post office which can be found here every Wednesday morning. Since 2020, it's all been run by Ed Faulkner, a former manager of a local hotel and golf club. Ed was instrumental in the transformation from a standard pub into a broader community space. He overhauled the menu, installed a new pizza oven, and spearheaded its lively events programme. Marston's Grade 1 listed Anglican parish church is dedicated to St Mary, and it's of 12th century origin. It has, though, a restored chancel in the early English style, which dates from 1881, designed by Kirk. St Mary's holds monuments to several members of the Thorold family. The structure that we see today consists of a west tower with an octagonal brooch spire, a nave with north and south aisles, a south porch, and that chancel with a chapel to the southeast. The porch has 3 images niches with statues, and a variety of carved heads look out from the spire. Speaking of that spire, it's a prominent landmark across the Witham from the railway to the east and the A1 to the west. The brooch spire was among the earliest types to ever be built in around the 13th century, and that's got to count for something here, right? The great mystery of the nave is the existence of the two vesica windows in the spandrels of the south arcade, which perhaps survive from an earlier aisleless church. In the base of one of these piers there's a reused carved Norman stone, which must be a relic of the earlier building. In the churchyard there's a charming 17th century sundial and a number of old tombs and headstones in Swithland slate. Beyond the sundial is a much celebrated laburnum tree leaning over the wall of the hall. It's considered to be the largest and oldest in England. As is normally the case in this area, there are some finely carved slate gravestones here. One mid-18th century grave to be found among them depicts old Father Time, who's standing on a plinth carrying an hourglass in one hand and a scythe in the other. The village sign stands just outside the grounds, and that features a depiction of the village school and a scene of the River Witham, with the Church of St Mary off in the distance. It's a well-placed village sign this, allowing for a photograph of the spire looming over the artist's impression of it. And if you head north from the green you've just seen there, you go towards the village hall, but that's just over the border into the next one, which we'll be covering tomorrow. So my last task, I suppose, is to go the other way, is to head back from whence we came, pick up the car at Kerrs Crescent and make our way to the village hall. I'll see you in that one tomorrow. So there you have it, folks, that's Marston, but it's inextricably linked to the next village in a few ways. For a start, the two share a village hall, and that'll kick us off in tomorrow's episode. Join me there in 24 hours as we bring another South Kesteven run to a close. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.